What's up, everybody? This is Toby, BatFlip Crazy, coming to you with another video. Today I'm going to be comparing two similar players, relatively similar players, outfielders going side by side in ADP. Ramon Laureano of the A's going at an ADP of 76, and Tommy Pham, newly acquired San Diego Padres outfielder, going at an ADP of 77. I thought these two guys would be great to cover, first of all, because it was recommended by somebody on Twitter, and I thought it was a great recommendation. And the second reason is because they're such similar players. They both provide power and speed. They both provide some batting average as well, but they do it in really different ways. And so I thought it would be an interesting little analysis to do. I'm going to start with Laureano since he is going first at an ADP of 76. Now, Laureano is obviously does not have the track record that Pham does, but he has been incredibly impressive in his 2 years in Major League Baseball. Really a power speed combo guy who's been able to keep a really solid batting average despite some relative strikeout issues. When we take a look at his rolling average graphs, you can see, there's quite a bit of variance in the graphs, which isn't necessarily surprising, but you can see the ground ball rate going down. You can see a pretty good hump there in the hard hit rate. The O swing getting a little high towards the end of the season last year, but overall, the approach isn't awful. It's certainly not. He's about league average, slightly worse probably when it comes to plate discipline. The contact skills, both in the zone and outside of the zone, are a little worse than league average. But he hits the ball fairly hard. I think the key for him is really that ground ball rate going down. He saw that go down about 8 percentage points last year, which is really huge for him. I mean, that's where he can tap into the power. That's where we see, that dual threat coming in, that power speed combination right there. So in addition to that, the hard hit rate around 40%, so slightly better than league average, but not anything particularly special. Remember last year, hard hit rate jumped in general in the league up to about 38% on average. When we take a look at his Statcast metrics, his average exit velocity solid above around 90 at 89.5 miles per hour. His average exit velocity on line drives and fly balls around 93.3 miles per hour. But he hits for some power, and I think that's one of the distinguishing factors between him and Pham. Is really he's got the power and Pham has a little bit more of the speed. When we look at his barrels per plate appearance at 6.4%, so not terrific, but certainly a pretty solid number for him. What's remarkable is he's been able to turn that into quite a few home runs. Despite playing half of his game in Oakland Coliseum, which is one of the worst hitters parks in baseball, which is another added bonus because if we end up playing in Arizona or other environments that may be a little bit more conducive to hitting, I mean, let's be honest, you can't get much worse than Oakland Coliseum. If that's the case, then, you could see Laureano take a little bit of a jump there as well. The hard hit rate for Statcast, right around the same thing as his Fangraphs hard hit rate, 40.4%. Where the real differentiation between these two guys comes in with the stolen bases, though. Laureano has been incredibly successful. Last year, he had 13 steals in 15 attempts for about an 87% success rate, which is really good. His sprint speed at 28.5, also solid. His home plate to first base, actually really good at 4.24, much better than Pham, despite having a lot of the upper hand when it comes to stolen base categories. And so, when I take a look at Laureano, what I see is a guy who's younger, right, than Pham. He's at 25. He's in a great lineup, probably going to be batting second in that lineup. He's in a terrific spot. The power, I think, is relatively legit if he can maintain that ground ball percentage. If you look at his deserved barrel rate compared to his barrel rate, now this is at Alex Chamberlain's leaderboard. It's his pitch leaderboard, but he's also got one for hitters as well. Definitely check that out at Dolph Haldhagen on Twitter. Alex is a great resource. He has the deserved barrels for Laureano being slightly lower than what he had for his barrel rate last year, but not too crazy of a difference. And then for his deserved home runs or his earned home runs, taking a look at Max Fries's numbers that he puts together using Statcast, he's actually about right where he should be, a little below actually in terms of home runs versus earned home runs. And so that is something that I really like to see for Laureano, because the question is, can he maintain that power? Is he going to steal bases in that Oakland lineup that may not steal as many bases as the Padres, for instance, or the Rays with Pham? I think that's the key piece. But everything looks pretty legit from Laureano's perspective. The batting average at 288 is based on a high BABIP, but that's something that he's been able to do, in both seasons, although the first one was a partial season. And so the batting average may be a little bit of an issue. The contact rate dipped towards the end of last year. So if the K rate goes up in accordance with that, then you might have a little bit of a batting average issue. So, but all in all, Laureano, I think, is a solid draft pick right there. He certainly has a higher ceiling if he gets a full season in, possibility of maybe even a 30-20 guy, which would be absolutely phenomenal if he plays a full season, batting second in that lineup. The runs and RBIs will be great as well. Transitioning over to Pham. Pham is a guy that I've loved for a long time. He's a 5-category contributor. He's not going to hurt you in any particular spot. The power may not be lights out, but definitely given the speed that he provides you, it's excellent. He's got everything you need in terms of, batting averages is pretty good, but he gets on base a ton, so he should score runs, which is actually something I'm going to talk about that didn't happen for him last year. When we look at Pham, solid across the board. Absolutely phenomenal plate discipline. Some of the best plate discipline in the league. His O swing's right around 20% every single year. So the guy is going to get on base. He's not going to chase pitches outside the zone. Contact rate above league average in both respects, both in the zone and outside of the zone. The 81% around overall contact rate is excellent. That is close to 5% better than league average in his overall contact rate, which is awesome to see right there. Ground ball rate is Pham's issue, and I think that's one of the keys that really shows you the benefit of being able to hit the ball in the air a lot, is the difference between Pham and Laureano. Because when we look at Pham, what you're actually going to see is a lot of his Statcast data is actually better than Laureano's is, but because he hits the ball on the ground so much more often than Laureano does, he doesn't quite get the same type of power, the same type of barrel rate. And so that I think is a really big differentiator when it comes to being able to bank the power from Pham's perspective. I will point out though that his ground ball rate last year around 53%. He's kind of fluctuated between the low 50s to the mid 40s, definitely on the higher side. So you may see that regress a little bit down moving forward, but. The hard hit rate, better than Laureano's, 43.4% according to Fangraphs. His average exit velocity, better than Laureano's as well at 90.8 miles per hour. So again, you're going to see that as a consistent theme between Pham and Laureano. Not necessarily saying that because of that Pham is better, because Laureano's been able to take advantage of that more because of the launch angle. The higher launch angle, the lower ground ball rate, which is really helpful for him. Average exit velocity on line drives and fly balls. This is actually an area where Pham thrives. 95.3 miles per hour, so a full 2 miles per hour higher than what Laureano is providing. Pham, when he hits the ball in the air, can do a ton of damage, but that fly ball rate is always very, very low. And you'll see that show up in his barrel rate. So he hits the ball really hard when he hits it in the air, but his barrels per plate appearance is still 5.4%. The reason for that is that higher ground ball rate, right? He's not hitting it in the barrel launch angles as consistently as a guy like Laureano is because of that lower ground ball rate. Hard hit rate for Statcast for Pham, also better than Laureano's at 44.8%. You can see in his rolling average graph just how much better than league average Pham is on a regular basis. Stolen bases, I think, is the place where Pham, like Laureano, differentiated himself with the power. Pham with the stolen bases is just with the OBP that he's got and with his speed. It's just an incredible combination for him. 25 stolen bases last year on 29 attempts. That's an 86% success rate. 3.8% of Pham's plate appearances had a stolen base. So his stolen base per plate appearance was at 3.8%. Compare that to Laureano, who was at 2.7%. So about, one stolen base per 100 plate appearances more for Pham. Sprint speed, Pham slightly edges Laureano, but right about the same at 28.7 miles per hour compared to 28.5. And then surprisingly enough, home plate to first base for Pham, actually pretty slow. I mean, not slow overall compared to the playing pool, but at 4.39, that's about 0.15 seconds slower to first base than Laureano. We know from Jess Zimmerman's article that he wrote, his research, that home plate to first is actually a better indicator of speed than just straight up sprint speed. So something to consider, but Pham's been so successful for a number of years in a row that I'm not really worried about it. Now, one thing that jumps out for me in looking at Pham and what he did last year, he only had 77 runs scored despite a career high 654 plate appearances, which is really surprising. His runs scored rate, so the times he got on base that he scored, was at 26% last year. Compare that to 35% for his career. So that's 10 runs fewer than he would usually get for every 100 times that he gets on base. So those 77 runs, for me, that's really an anomaly. With his OBP being elite, his speed being elite, he should get on base and he should score a ton of runs, even in a Padres lineup that maybe isn't quite as good as the Rays lineup that he left. So when I think about the two of Laureano and Pham, and I think about who I'm going to draft, really the reason why they're going right next to each other is because they are such similar players. The one little bit is injury. Laureano did miss time last year. He was really good after he came back, but he did miss time. He's kind of a balls to the wall type guy when he plays defense. So he's climbing that wall, he's making those throws, but that might make him a little bit more susceptible to injury. We don't have enough of a track record to know. Pham kind of has that label as injury prone. He had the elbow issue, that kind of held up the trade to the Padres for a little while there, which gives me definitely some concerns. But, he's always kind of been a guy who always seems to be fighting injuries. But when you look at it, he's averaging about 600 plate appearances per season over the last 3 years. So it hasn't really borne out. I think the differentiator, again, for Laureano, I think when I think about batting average, I think Pham has the edge. He's got that profile for batting average when it comes to the elite contact that he makes, the plate discipline. He puts up a lot of balls on the ground, which isn't terrible because he spreads them around. So, I like Pham from an average perspective, but they're pretty close. Runs scored, it's a little bit of a toss-up. Laureano in a better lineup, Pham with the better OBP. When I think about power, Laureano's definitely got the bump there because of the ground ball rate being low, and the fact he's younger too. So while Pham's a little bit older, you're worried about when he's going to get run down. Laureano's kind of entering his prime, in the prime of that A's lineup. When it comes to RBIs, Laureano just has a better RBI profile than Pham, but Pham has the edge for speed for me. I just trust the speed going to San Diego a little bit more. I trust just the track record that he has in terms of speed. And then I think with Laureano, there's always the question of whether in the A's lineup batting second, whether he's going to steal as frequently, just with Chapman and Olsen and Chris Davis behind him, is it really necessary? So if I'm put in a position where I have to draft between the two of them, I'm hesitant on Pham because of the age, because of the injury, but I'm probably leaning Pham just because I want to be targeting speed a little bit more. But again, I see why they're a toss-up. I think Laureano has the higher ceiling. Obviously, I think he has the lower floor just because the profile is a little bit more erratic than what we see with Pham. But either way, I like both guys, generally speaking. Let's hope with Pham, monitor those elbow, how the elbow is doing as the season progresses. But generally speaking, I think you can't go wrong with both. I probably lean Pham just a little bit after breaking them both down. But I like both players a lot. That's going to wrap it up for this video. If you like it, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let me know your thoughts on the video. Guys you'd like me to compare, guys you'd like me to analyze. I'm always willing to help. But thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Take care and be kind to one another.